Okay, picture this. It's 1995. The internet is, what, basically a toddler.
Oh, yeah, all screeching dial-up modems.
Yeah.
And you've got a graphic design teacher named Linda Weinman.
Right, and she's teaching these new digital tools, Photoshop and things like that, but she runs into a problem.
A big one.
She needs a place, like a digital sandbox, for her students to actually show their work to everyone.
Which, let's be honest, in 1995 is not exactly a simple thing to do. You're basically hand-coding HTML from scratch.
Exactly. So she buys a domain name, lynda.com. It starts as this tiny, tiny project. But fast forward to 2002, and she has this huge realization.
The aha moment.
She moves everything online, builds this massive library of tutorials, and eventually sells that little sandbox to LinkedIn for $1.5 billion.
That is just a staggering number. But, when you look at a journey like Linda's from the outside, it just looks chaotic. It looks messy.
To a traditional manager, it probably looks like they're just making it up as they go.
Well, yes and no. I mean, they are breaking the rules, sure, the rules of corporate management. But they are following a compass. It's just a completely different set of rules.
And that's what we're digging into today. We're doing a deep dive into the work of John Mullins, who's decoded what he calls the counter-conventional mindsets of successful founders.
And this is such an important topic because it really challenges that standard MBA story. You write a 50-page business plan, you analyze your core competencies, and then you just execute.
Right. But what Mullins argues is that if you're trying to start something genuinely new, those so-called best practices might be the very thing that kills your idea.
That is the most critical distinction for you, the listener, to get right up front. If you're running General Electric, okay, fine. You need risk management and stability. You're protecting a fortress.
But if you're the one with a new idea, a startup, in its early days, that corporate playbook is worse than useless. It can be actively dangerous.
So, we've got 6 specific mindsets to unpack today. 6 ways to kind of rewire your brain to think like a founder, not a manager. And this first one, it honestly sounds like bad advice.
It really does. It sounds reckless.
It does. Mullins calls this first one, yes, we can. And it completely flips one of the most sacred ideas in business school on its head.
Core competencies.
Exactly. Stick to your knitting. Figure out what you're good at and do not get distracted.
Which, that sounds pretty reasonable, doesn't it?
In a mature company, yes, where efficiency is the game. But for an entrepreneur, your so-called competency is often just a trap. It limits what you even think is possible.
Okay, so give me an example of someone who breaks out of that trap without just, crashing and burning.
Let's talk about Arnold Correa. He's a Brazilian entrepreneur, founder of a company called Atmo Digital. He started out in event management.
Okay, so conferences, sound systems, that kind of thing.
Yep. He was doing just fine, but then a huge client comes to him, a retailer with 260 stores all across Brazil.
And they have a problem.
A massive problem. They need to train all their employees in all 260 locations at the same time. And they ask Arnold, can you set up a private satellite network for us?
Whoa, hold on. He's an event guy. He is not a satellite engineer.
Not even close. He knows absolutely nothing about satellite uplinks. So if he follows that core competency rule, the answer is easy. It's no, sorry, not what we do.
But he doesn't say that.
No. He looks them right in the eye and says, yes, we can do that.
Okay, stop right there. Isn't that just lying? Or at least unbelievably risky.
It feels like lying to a manager who's obsessed with avoiding risk, but to an entrepreneur, it's a commitment. Arnold knew satellite tech is a commodity. He can hire a satellite guy. He can buy the dish.
But the relationship, the trust with the client.
That was the scarce asset, exactly.
Yeah.
He sold the trust first and figured out how to buy the competence later.
And it worked.
It worked. But here's where it gets really interesting. A few years later, Walmart comes to him. They see these screens and say, hey, can you put screens on the sales floor? Maybe show ads for detergent right in the detergent aisle.
That is a completely different business. You're going from B2B corporate training to retail advertising.
Totally different worlds. And again, Arnold just says, yes, we can. He reinvented his business 4 times, not by writing some grand strategy, but by following the customer's problem instead of his own resume.
So the takeaway isn't lie to your clients. It's more like, don't let what you can do today dictate what your business can be tomorrow.
Precisely. You commit first, you build the competency second.
Which leads us perfectly into the second mindset. Because if you're going to be saying yes, you have to be saying yes to the right things. Otherwise, you're just chasing every random idea.
Exactly. This is what Mullins calls problem-first logic, which is the opposite of product-first logic.
And product first is what you see everywhere, right? New and improved. But the only thing that changed is the color of the speckles in the laundry soap.
That's it. It's incremental. How do we tweak our thing to make it 5% better? Big companies are obsessed with products because they have factories to keep busy. Entrepreneurs, they need to be obsessed with problems.
And not just any problems.
No, what he calls hair on fire problems.
Mullins has this great story about John Thorne that really nails this. He was working with surgical tools.
Yes. Thorne develops this new silver nickel alloy. It's super nonstick. So he makes surgical forceps with it because standard forceps tend to stick to human tissue when you're cauterizing.
It sounds unpleasant.
Very. Especially for, say, a plastic surgeon doing a facelift. It's delicate work, the tool sticks, it slows things down, it's annoying. So Thorne thinks, great, I'll sell these to plastic surgeons.
Seems logical. He found a problem. He has the solution.
But the business just sort of limped along, and this is the key detail. The problem was real, but it wasn't critical. A facelift taking 5 minutes longer is an annoyance for the surgeon, but the patient's fine.
It was a nice to have.
Exactly. So Thorne has to pivot. He stops looking at his cool product and starts looking for a much, much worse problem.
He asks, who has a really, really bad day if the forceps stick?
And the answer was neurosurgeons.
Brain surgeons.
Right. Think about the difference in stakes. If you're operating on a brain or a spine and the tool sticks, you're not just annoyed. You might be pulling away brain cells. You could be causing permanent paralysis.
Wow. Okay, that's a massive shift.
It's huge. Same exact tool, same alloy. But by shifting from a cosmetic problem to a life-altering one, the value just exploded. He wasn't selling convenience anymore. He was selling safety for the brain.
And he sold that company to Stryker for a fortune.
The lesson there is just so clear. Don't fall in love with your solution, fall in love with the problem, and be brutally honest about how much that problem actually hurts.
Okay, so you find a hair on fire problem. The natural instinct then is to go big, right? Solve it for everyone. You want that massive TAM, the total addressable market.
Investors love a big TAM. But for a startup, thinking broad is a death trap. Which brings us to mindset number 3. Think narrow, not broad.
And the classic example here is Nike.
But not the Nike we know today. Now they sell to everyone, grandmas, toddlers, you name it. But Phil Knight and Bill Bowerman didn't start there. If they had tried to make a shoe for everyone in the 60s, they would have been crushed.
By Adidas, Puma?
Instantly. They needed a beachhead, a tiny little niche.
Elite distance runners.
A microscopically small niche. And they chose them because those runners had a very specific, very painful problem nobody else was solving.
Right. Running shoes back then were for sprinters on a smooth track.
Exactly. Distance runners were on country roads, on dirt, they were getting shin splints, stepping on rocks.
So Bowerman didn't make a general athletic shoe. He made a shoe specifically for running on dirt paths.
It had lateral stability, a wider footbed, that waffle sole for grip. It was actually a terrible shoe for a sprinter, but for that one group, it was a game changer.
And once they dominated that niche.
That's the key. They got cash flow, sure, but more importantly, they got credibility. The elite runners wore them, so the weekend runners wanted them. Then the tennis players saw them. Then Michael Jordan.
It's the bowling pin strategy. You have to knock down that first pin cleanly to get the rest.
That's it. Most entrepreneurs try to throw the ball at all 10 pins at once, and they just end up in the gutter.
Okay, let's talk about the fuel for all of this. Money. Because usually the startup conversation goes straight to venture capital.
It does. Go to Sand Hill Road, get a big check, then build your thing. That's the myth. But Mullins points out that's actually super rare. So mindset number 4 is ask for the cash.
The cash flow flip. I really want to unpack this because it sounds simple, but it fundamentally changes the whole business.
It changes everything. A traditional business, say a clothing store, buys fabric, pays a factory, ships the shirts, and then waits for you to buy one.
So their cash is tied up for months.
Exactly. There's a cash gap. The cash flow flip is about getting the money before you spend it.
And the masterclass in this is Tesla.
Absolutely. People forget Elon Musk didn't just have billions lying around. Starting a car company is insanely expensive.
So how did they do it?
They sold the promise of the car before the car existed. They held a big party for the Tesla Roadster, invited a bunch of wealthy, eco-conscious people.
And they said,
if you want this car in 2 years, give us $100,000 today.
and people did it.
They sold 100 of them. That's $10 million in the bank before a single production car was built.
That's an interest-free loan from your customers.
It's better than that. It's equity free. They didn't give up a single share of the company for that $10 million. Then they did it again with the Model 3. 500,000 people put down a $1,000 deposit
That's $500 million.
in the sign-up form. The point is, you should design your business so that your customers fund your growth, not a bank or a VC. It forces a certain kind of discipline.
Okay, so you've got the cash. Now you need assets, a factory, a warehouse, or, in this next story, a forest.
Yeah, you need trees, lots of them. This is mindset number 5. Beg, borrow, don't steal. It's all about keeping your fixed costs as low as possible.
This comes from the story of Go Ape, the treetop adventure company in the UK.
Tristram and Rebecca Mayhew, they wanted to build these zipline courses. But think about the biggest asset you need,
A forest with big mature trees.
which would cost millions of pounds to buy. If you run a normal financial model on that, the idea is dead on arrival.
The upfront cost is impossible.
Totally. So instead of asking, how can I buy this asset, they asked, who already owns this asset?
And the answer was the government.
The UK Forestry Commission. They own millions of trees, but they have their own problem. They need more visitors to justify their budget.
It's a perfect match.
The Mayhews pitched them a deal. Let us build our courses on your land. We won't buy it. We won't even lease it. We'll just give you a percentage of every ticket we sell.
So they turned a massive fixed cost into a variable cost.
Exactly. If nobody shows up, they pay the Forestry Commission nothing. They completely de-risked the business. They borrowed the land, the trees, even the parking lots. All they had to buy was the kit, the ropes and ladders.
It seems like that really challenges the entrepreneur's ego. The need to own everything. My office, my factory, my fleet.
Ownership is heavy. It makes you slow. In the early days, you have to be light and nimble. Access over ownership. That's the mantra.
All right, we're down to the last mindset. And this one might be the most controversial. Mindset number 6. Don't ask permission.
Yeah, we have to be careful with this one, but the logic is sound. In a big company, you have lawyers and compliance officers whose entire job is to keep the company out of trouble.
So their default answer to anything new or risky is always
No, because no is safe. No protects their job. But an entrepreneur cannot afford to be safe. The prime example, of course, is Uber.
Travis Kalanick and Garrett Camp. If they had walked into the San Francisco regulator's office in 2009,
Oh, just imagine. Hi, we'd like to start a taxi service, but with no taxi medallions, no commercial insurance, using regular people's cars.
they would have been laughed out of the building.
Or arrested.
Yeah.
The regulators would have shown them 20 laws making that illegal, so what did they do?
I just did it.
They just launched. They knew the laws were written for a pre-smartphone world. They bet that if they could get enough customers to love the service, the regulators wouldn't be able to shut them down. Popularity became their shield.
It's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission.
In this very specific context of outdated regulation, yes. Now, Mullins is very clear this isn't about committing fraud or selling dangerous products.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that if you wait for the law to catch up with technology, you will never, ever start.
Sometimes you have to prove the new model works before they'll even consider changing the rules.
Exactly. So let's zoom out. We've gone from saying yes when you don't know how to finding hair on fire problems, thinking narrow, borrowing assets, and ignoring the rule book.
It really is a complete inversion of the standard MBA toolkit.
Huh.
If you tried to do all this inside a huge company, you'd probably get fired.
And if you don't do them in a startup, you'll probably fail. That's the paradox.
Big companies execute. Startups search. You can't use the same map for both journeys.
And what's so encouraging is that these aren't personality traits. Linda Weinman wasn't some wild rebel. She was a teacher who needed a sandbox for her class. These are learnable habits.
So here's the challenge for you listening. Take a look at your idea or the roadblock that's in front of you right now and ask yourself, where are you acting like a manager when you really need to be acting like a founder?
Are you waiting for permission from someone? Are you trying to build something for everyone instead of for someone? Are you waiting for an investor's check when you could be asking a customer for the cash?
That shift in mindset is often the only thing standing between a stalled idea and a real breakthrough.
Just remember the one rule. Break the rules of business, not the rules of ethics. There's a big difference.
A very important one. That's it for this deep dive. Go make some trouble.
See you next time.